Is it possible to beat Half-Life opposing force with Wait, hold on. So a few months ago, I decided to beat a couple of Half-Life games with very few of their weapons, namely the pistol. I posted 2 videos about it, one of which did very well, we don't talk about the other one, so now it's time for the last of the 3.5 gold source titles. In Half-Life Opposing Force, you play as some random corporal named Adrian Shepard who was caught right in the middle of the Black Mesa incident. Let's explain the rules for this challenge. Number 1, I have to beat the whole game using only 3 weapons. The Combat Knife, the Desert Eagle, and Specimen 1176, I'll explain that later. Number 2, I can't pick up any other weapons. Doing so requires me to load a save from before I picked it up. Number 3, any glitches or exploits are allowed so long as they follow the above rules. Will I be able to do it? Probably not, let's find out anyway. This game starts on a chopper, with your fellow brothers in arms briefing your mission.
Right, I don't know about you, but I can't be arsed sitting through this. So these guys are just gonna spout gibberish. Oh my god.
After waking up somewhere deep within the Black Mesa research facility, I get stuck in a guy for a long period of about 8 seconds, and then immediately leave the guy I was just stuck in completely alone to tend to my dead allies, and start boosting it to my first objective. The Powered Combat Vest. After picking it up, I make my way to the all too regular Otis, who opens a door to the first hazard of the challenge. The wrench. I'm not picking it up for this run in favour of the clearly superior combat knife. Now, you might be wondering how one would go about getting past this first section here without something to break the reflector. Well, you see...
There we go, I got it.
Just move. Shortly after not following that advice, I noticed I had amassed a grand total of 1 viewer. You see, this whole run was being broadcast on Twitch, and this viewer, Scruffy First, would stick with me through most of the dread to come, and that made it just a little better. Though, listening to myself trying to answer their question, I'm realizing that my articulation sucks.
Man, I'm not good at articulating anything.
Shortly thereafter, I stand witness to another Otis killing himself on a gate while I completely ignore him, and after maneuvering myself to behind the gate he just killed himself with, I pick up his gun. You might be wondering, what happened to the pistol? I'll explain that in just a moment. First, I dodge absolutely every attack thrown at me from multiple alien forces, make my way down a hole and into a barnacle, and realize the unspeakable power of the combat knife.
They just die. They just die in 3 hits.
Then, while waiting for what I can basically only describe as a cutscene, Scruffy First asked me a very difficult question, to which I responded with, I have no idea! Regardless, I have to press on for one reason and one reason only. For the content! Back on the point of the pistol, this is the section in which that weapon fails. See, Opposing Force, unlike Blue Shift, is in stark contrast to the original Half-Life. The weapons, some of the story, and especially the progression are different in particular. For this section right here, I would need either a grenade, which would break Rule 2, or the pistol, which because of Opposing Force's progression, I don't have access to yet. So I chose to straight up change the rules to benefit myself and elected to use the Desert Eagle over the pistol for this version of this challenge. And I did ask beforehand, I didn't just decide on my own. Above that section, just beyond an elevator, I proceed to get mauled by hound eyes who are absolutely no match for the great and terrible combat knife.
It's that easy.
After a short tram ride to the next area, I ran in with the man, the myth, the menace, Otis. The difference with this Otis in particular is that he's the most capable AI this engine has ever seen.
Oh my...
He ended up saving me a good few shots, which was nice. Moments after being blocked from victory by the G-Man, I enter the chapter Missing in Action, where my new task is to go through the ventilation underground and... go through the ventilation underground and one-shot later misnamed unnamed creatures. Oh, and also momentarily get stuck in a headcrab. I assume the creatures in question were named Voltigors before immediately realizing that those were the big antlion guard looking things. I then went off the sentiment of Volti as the first part of its name for some reason. My viewer then comes in with an embarrassing correction. Gnomes. Those things are called gnomes.
Gnome. I was way off. Far out.
Further on, I find 1, 2, 3 weapons that I can't pick up and forget about them completely as I move on through the elevator shaft, turn off a generator or something, and 3 or 4 events later my first living allies show up and blow up a maintenance door.
Nuh-uh.
Enter chapter Friendly Fire, and despite what the chapter name insinuates, I can't commit blatant murder with every friendly soldier I see as much as I'd like to. After encountering a very funky door, which Scruffy seemed to be very puzzled at, I crawl my way through a ceiling to find the reason this chapter is named the way it is. The Black Ops. These guys are going to be annoying me for the rest of the game, and will even be my eventual downfall. Spoiler alert. One reason they'll be annoying me is because I found out the hard way that the male Black Ops assassins don't die in one headshot with the deagle. Anyway, after blowing up an alternate reality and getting very upset with how long dialogue takes, I don't pick up an SMG like 3 times, and get an engineer to break through a door, taking me to the opposing force equivalent of Honor Rail, and if you saw the first video in this 3-part series, you know that I don't like Honor Rail very much. This part is pretty difficult, but it's nowhere near impossible.
10 health challenge! 2 health challenge! 0 health challenge!
With enough save scumming, most things in Half-Life games are doable, so that's exactly what this section was. Saving, killing an enemy, loading the save if something didn't go well, or if I died, rinse and repeat until...
That's a deagle, right?
Wow. We are not alone. The shortest chapter I think I've seen in any Half-Life game, besides Zen from Half-Life 1. At least I got a health and suit refill, so that helps. Time for Crush Depth. In contrast to the last chapter, it's a long haul. About 5 minutes in, I have my first encounter with an enemy that I can only describe as irritating, even when playing the game normally. They take more than an entire SMG grenade to kill, so you can imagine what it's like trying to take down a shock trooper with a Desert Eagle. On top of that, the weapon that they use, the Shock Roach, can be picked up and used by you. So to summarize, this enemy sucks. All round. So the next one I find, I just run straight past it, right into a Voltigor. Up ahead, I run into the Border World examination sections, and by complete accident, do a goofy.
I did a goofy.
Anyway, continuing on, I find a very overpowered weapon. The Spore Launcher. Sadly, I still can't pick it up, so I carry on and finally find the third weapon that I can pick up for this challenge. Specimen 1176, or the Barnacle Grapple. I'm fairly certain that this challenge, and quite possibly the game, aren't able to be beaten without picking up this weapon, so for the rest of the challenge I have 3 weapons. Anyway, I'm now down to my last magazine of 357 ammo for the deagle. So far it hasn't been a problem. Let's see how long we can keep it that way, foreshadowing. After getting stuck in an elevator and briefly turning into Wheatley, I have to once again use the grapple to progress, which takes me to Pitworm's Nest. A chapter of the game that, with some reasonably simple movement, can be skipped in its entirety. Now it's time for the opposing force equivalent of surface tension, Foxtrot Uniform. And just in time, I ran clean out of 357 ammo. So I run for cover with 6 health to spare, where I find a few more of my allies, and 0 357 ammo. So what do? Well, like earlier, just move. I then find myself in the underground tunnels with a load of Voltigors. And since I've got no ammo, I begin stabbing for my life. There's just one small problem with this strategy. That's right. Voltigors explode on death, making it impossible to progress. So, is it possible to beat Half-Life opposing force with just 3 weapons? Well, the answer isn't actually as simple as that. You see, I think it might be possible, but there are several mistakes I made along the way due to this being the first attempt at this challenge. But for now, I can't be f***ed. However, I wanted to beat this challenge there and then, so I did some unlawful practices. I turned on SV cheats and spawned in some 357 ammo. I shot the Voltigor on my way and carried on to the rest of the game. Luckily, here I use my allies to my advantage by using them as human shields, and then I remember that medics can heal you if you hold down the use key, so I abuse that and book it to the goal line where I finally find some suit charge. Directly after that, I put a little counter in the top left of my stream that said how many rounds of 357 ammo I'd cheated in. I make a gargantuan wide and crawl through raw sewage until the next chapter.
The package. That's what they called me in high school.
To put it bluntly, I'm getting nuked, and I'm out of ammo again. I get into a bunker and start stabbing everyone I see. And the worst part of all of it? Scruffy first had to leave. After assassinating my assassin, I use his mortar to progress and kill some aliens, and cheat in some more ammo. After an unpleasant experience with a helicopter and an even more unpleasant experience with some aliens, I disarm a warhead, and so comes the hardest part of the entire challenge. The final chapter, Worlds Collide. This section has so many Black Ops soldiers that at this point I can pretty safely say that this section isn't possible without some kind of outside assistance. Sure, I could have tried my hand for hours on end, but not only does no one want to see me do that, I myself don't want to do that. So I took it upon myself to become God as one last middle finger to this challenge. I killed the gene worm, got trapped in stasis for eternity, and stopped my stream. So, is it possible to beat Half-Life Opposing Force with 3 weapons? As far as I know, nah, it's not. Alright, I gotta get a re-recording of this, because I did terrible the first time. 2 things. One, I am done with Half-Life. I don't want to do Half-Life content anymore, I want to branch out a bit. That's not to say I'm never gonna revisit Half-Life, because I will. Like, I promised the Half-Life 2 with only 3 weapons. But I don't want to do it anytime soon. So you might have to wait a bit. And 2, it took me 2 scripts to realize that I don't like writing scripts very much. It's not the sort of thing I want to do for this channel. It's not really the reason I started it. Like, I want to go a lot more freeform with the editing of it. Because it's one of my favorite parts about this whole gig. So I'm thinking of either doing Counter-Strike 2 or Terraria 1.4.5 when that comes out. I also want to thank all of you so much for just the support on the original video and the continued support on the original video. I mean, it's not much now, but man, it's still so good to see that I can do something. And I also want to apologize for the what's basically the shit post of the last video. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. And I'm sorry that this one took so long to make. I'm still getting kind of swamped by life and all that. You know how it is. And also, while the website's still around, I do occasionally stream some Saturdays on Twitch. I mean, if you want to see what I do live, I don't know, consider coming to check it out. It's just on my channel page, or I'll put a link in the description if you want. And I'll usually post about it on the community page, which I know is not a good medium, but it's kind of the only one I have at the moment, which is kind of irritating because it doesn't really do anything. I think that's about it. Thanks for watching, and I have some outtakes. Shortly thereafter, I stand witness to another Otis killing himself on a gate while I completely ignore him, and after movering? Moments after being blocked from victory by the G-Man, I entered the chat. Oh, fuck, that line is just too good. That line is. Why is it there? They take more than an entire SMG grenade to for fuck's sake.